Come follow me June 6th to 12th. Ruth and 1 Samuel 1 to 3. My heart rejoiceth in the Lord. As you study the lives of Ruth, Naomi, Hannah, and others this week, listen closely to the Spirit and record any impressions you receive. What are you inspired to do? Record your impressions. Sometimes we imagine that our lives should follow a clear path from beginning to end. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, after all. And yet, life is often full of delays and detours that take us in unexpected directions. We may find that our lives are quite different from what we thought they should be. Ruth and Hannah surely understood this. Ruth was not an Israelite, but she married one, and when her husband died, she had a choice to make. Would she return to her family and her old familiar life, or would she embrace the Israelite faith and a new home with her mother-in-law? Hannah's plan for her life was to bear children, and her inability to do so left her in bitterness of soul. As you read about Ruth and Hannah, consider the faith they must have had to put their lives in the Lord's hands and travel their unexpected paths. Then you might think about your own journey. It will look different from Ruth's and Hannah's and anyone else's, but throughout the trials and surprises between here and your eternal destination, you can learn to say with Hannah, "My heart rejoiceth in the Lord." For an overview of the books of Ruth and 1 Samuel, see Ruth and Samuel Books of in the Bible Dictionary. Old Testament Student Manual, Introduction. Samson could have been one of the greatest leaders in Israel since Joshua if he had been true to his Nazirite vows and to his Lord. If Samson, foreordained and chosen by the Lord, had been able to master himself, he could have set an example of spiritual and physical courage that would rank with the finest in history. But we can learn from Samson's failure to avoid self-justification and uncontrolled passion so that we might join modern Israel in becoming a mighty and pure people before the second coming of the Lord. There were some, however, who did not falter during the last years of the rule of the judges. Ruth, a true convert to Jehovah, lived a quiet life devoted to righteous principles. Through her devotion and faith, Ruth chose the better part and was blessed to marry Boaz. They became the parents of a noble posterity that included King David, Mary, and the Messiah. Elder Thomas S. Monson said, "In our selection of heroes, let us nominate our heroines. First, that noble example of fidelity, even Ruth, sensing the grief-stricken heart of her mother-in-law, who suffered the loss of each of her 2 fine sons, and feeling perhaps the pangs of despair and loneliness which plagued the very soul of Naomi, Ruth uttered what has become that classic statement of loyalty: 'Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest I will go, and where thou lodgest I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God.'" Ruth's actions demonstrated the sincerity of her words. There is place for her name in the Hall of Fame. To the Scriptures. Ruth chapter 1. Elimelech and his family go to Moab because of famine. His sons marry. The father and sons die. Ruth and the Moabitess, her husband having died, remains constant to Naomi. They come to Bethlehem. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. Old Testament Student Manual, Ruth 1:1. What is the background of the book of Ruth? Many years had passed since the Israelites had crossed the Jordan and formed a loose tribal confederacy in the central highlands of Canaan. As they established their own settlements, they gradually discarded their nomadic traditions and adopted an agricultural way of life. Yet their position remained precarious. The northern tribes were almost constantly at war with those walled cities that remained under the control of the Canaanites, and they frequently had to defend themselves against invasions by people from the east, the Ammonites and the Midianites. In contrast, Judah, which occupied the southern end of the Israelite territory, seems to have been relatively tranquil and not involved in the great wars that concerned the judges. The people of Judah regularly battled another sort of enemy, the climate. Judah occupied a rugged plateau in the semi arid lands west of the Dead Sea. Normally, the land was fertile enough to sustain fields of wheat and barley, grape vineyards, and groves of olive and fig trees. But occasionally, the rains failed, the crops withered, and there was famine. During one such disaster, a Judean man named Elimelech, who lived in the town of Bethlehem, fled the land with his wife Naomi and their two sons Mahlon and Chilion. The family traveled to Moab, a kingdom on the eastern borders of the Dead Sea. The distance was not great, perhaps 30 or 40 miles along the edge of that inland sea, the Dead Sea. Back to the scriptures. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his two sons Mahlon and Chilion, Euphrates of Bethlehem, Judah. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her two sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth, and they dwelled there about 10 years. And Mahlon and Chilion died, also both of them, and the woman was left of her two sons and her husband. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law, that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab how that the Lord had visited his people in giving them bread. Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her two daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return unto the land of Judah. And Naomi said unto her two daughters-in-law, Go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant you that ye may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. And they said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people. And Naomi said, Turn again, my daughters, why will ye go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say, I have hope, if I should have a husband also tonight, and should also bear sons, would ye tarry for them till they were grown? Would ye stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes, that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. And they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. And she said, Behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people, and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. And Ruth said, Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest I will go, and where thou lodgest I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. Old Testament Student Manual, Ruth 1:16. Thy God shall be my God. The primary god of the Moabites was Chemosh. While there is no indication that Ruth and her sister-in-law Orpah were believers in this false god, 2 verses say that Ruth was converted to the true God of Israel. In her beautiful expression of loyalty and devotion to Naomi, Ruth said that she not only wished to stay with her mother-in-law, but also desired to make Naomi's people her people, and Naomi's God her God. Later, Boaz, praising Ruth's concern for Naomi, says to her, A full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. Both of these passages indicate that Ruth was converted. Back to the scriptures. Where thou diest, I will die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me. When she saw that she was steadfastly minded to go with her, then she left speaking unto her. So they two went until they came to Bethlehem. And it came to pass, when they were come to Bethlehem, that all the city was moved about them. And they said, Is this Naomi? And she said unto them, Call me not Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord hath brought me home again empty. Why then call me Naomi, seeing the Lord hath testified against me, and the Almighty hath afflicted me? Old Testament Student Manual, Ruth 1:19-21. Naomi here used a play on words based on her name. In Hebrew, Naomi means sweet or pleasant, and Mara means bitter. When, after many years' absence, the people greeted her in surprise by asking, "Is this Naomi?" she responded by saying, "Call me not Naomi, or pleasant, call me Mara, bitter, for the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me." This reply was not an accusation, only Naomi's way of saying that she had endured much tragedy while in Moab. Back to the scriptures. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. Ruth chapter 2. Ruth gleans in the fields of Boaz, a near relative of Naomi. He treats Ruth kindly. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth, of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, "Let me now go to the field, and glean ears of corn after him in whose sight I shall find grace." And she said unto her, "Go, my daughter." And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and said unto the reapers, "The Lord be with you." And they answered him, "The Lord bless thee." Then said Boaz unto his servant who was set over the reapers, "Whose damsel is this?" And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, "It is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab." And she said, "I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves." So she came, and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, "Hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens. Let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels, and drink of that which the young men have drawn." Then she fell on her face, and bowed herself to the ground, and said unto him, "Why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger?" And Boaz answered and said unto her, "It hath fully been shown me all that thou hast done unto my mother-in-law since the death of thine husband, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother, and the land of thy nativity, and art come unto a people which thou knewest not heretofore. The Lord recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust." Then she said, "Let me find favor in thy sight, my Lord, for that thou hast comforted me, and for that thou hast spoken friendly unto thine handmaid, though I be not like unto one of thy handmaidens." And Boaz said unto her, "At mealtime come hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar." And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached her parched corn, and she did eat, and was sufficed, and left. And when she was risen up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, "Let her glean even among the sheaves, and reproach her not. And let fall also some of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave them, that she may glean them, and rebuke her not." So she gleaned in the field until even, and beat out that she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Old Testament Student Manual, Ruth 1:22 to chapter 2:17. What is gleaning? Harvesting was difficult work and demanded long hours. Young men moved through the fields, grasping handfuls of the grain and cutting through the stalks with sickles. These small bunches of grain were then bound into bundles called sheaves. As the men worked rapidly, a number of stalks fell to the ground. If the men were careful and took the time, these too could be gathered up. However, any stalks that dropped were allowed to remain where they fell. Poor people following the reapers were permitted to glean or gather the random stalks. possibly all that stood between them and starvation. In addition, the edges of the field where the sickle was not as easily wielded were left unharvested. The poor were welcome to that portion as well. The destitute of Bethlehem now included Ruth and Naomi, and Ruth offered to go into the fields and glean. Back to the scriptures. And she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, and she brought forth and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. And her mother-in-law said unto her, Where hast thou gleaned today? And where wroughtest thou? Blessed be he that did take knowledge of thee. And she showed her mother-in-law with whom she had wrought, and said, The man's name with whom I wrought today is Boaz. And Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, Blessed be he of the Lord, who hath not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, The man is near of kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. And Ruth the Moabitess said, He said unto me also, Thou shalt keep fast by my young men until they have ended all my harvest. And Naomi said unto Ruth, her daughter-in-law, It is good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, that they meet thee not in any other field. So she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean unto the end of the barley harvest and of wheat harvest, and dwelt with her mother-in-law. Ruth chapter 3. By Naomi's instruction, Ruth lies at the feet of Boaz. He promises as a relative to take her as his wife. Then Naomi her mother-in-law said unto her, My daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee, that it may be well with thee? And now is not Boaz of our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast? Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. Wash thyself therefore, and anoint thee, and put thy raiment upon thee, and get thee down to the floor, but make not thyself known unto the man, until he shall have done eating and drinking. And it shall be, when he lieth down, that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie, and thou shalt go in and uncover his feet, and lay thee down, and he will tell thee what thou shalt do. And she said unto her, All that thou sayest unto me I will do. And she went down unto the floor, and did according to all that her mother-in-law bade her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn, and she came softly and uncovered his feet, and laid her down. And it came to pass at midnight that the man was afraid, and turned himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. And he said, Who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth, thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. Old Testament Student Manual, Ruth 3:6-9. How did Ruth make her proposal to Boaz? When Boaz awoke from his sleep by the pile of grain which he was guarding, as was the custom during harvest time, he was startled by Ruth's presence. She was direct in her proposal. The word rendered skirt also means wings, and her request is not unlike our idiom, take me under your wing. Gesenius, the famous Hebrist, says it was a proper proposal of marriage, even though the girl was doing the proposing. The idiom means protect me, or in other words, be my protector or husband. According to our customs, indeed, this act of Naomi and Ruth appears a very objectionable one from a moral point of view, but it was not so when judged by the customs of the people of Israel at that time. Boaz, who was an honorable man, and according to Ruth 3:10, no doubt somewhat advanced in years, praised Ruth for having taken refuge with him, and promised to fulfill her wishes when he had satisfied himself that the nearer Redeemer would renounce his right and duty. As he acknowledged by this very declaration that under certain circumstances it would be his duty as Redeemer to marry Ruth, he took no offense at the manner in which she had approached him and proposed to become his wife. On the contrary, he regarded it as a proof of feminine virtue and modesty that she had not gone after young men, but offered herself as a wife to an old man like him. This conduct on the part of Boaz is a sufficient proof that women might have confidence in him that he would do nothing unseemly. and he justified such confidence. Back to the scriptures. And he said, Blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast shown more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, fear not. I will do to thee all that thou requirest. For all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman, howbeit there is a kinsman nearer than I. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning that if he will perform unto thee the part of the kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman part. But if he will not do the part of the kinsman to thee, then I will do the part of a kinsman to thee, as the Lord liveth. Lie down until the morning. And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And she said, Let it not be known that a woman came into the floor. Also he said, Bring the veil that thou hast upon thee, and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley, and laid it on her, and she went into the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, Who art thou, my daughter? And she told her all that the man had done for her. And she said, These 6 measures of barley gave he me, for he said to me, Go not empty unto thy mother-in-law. Then said she, Sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall, for the man will not be in rest until he have finished the thing this day. Ruth chapter 4. The nearest relative declines, and Boaz takes Ruth to wife. Ruth bears Obed, through whom came David the king. Then went Boaz up to the gate, and sat him down there, and behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by, unto whom he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city, and said, Sit ye down here. And they sat down. And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise thee, saying, Buy it before the inhabitants, and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, but if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know, for there is none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it. Then said Boaz, What day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar mine own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. Now this was the manner in former time of Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing. For to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was a testimony in Israel. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, Buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, Ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Chilion's and Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place. Ye are witnesses this day. Old Testament Student Manual, Ruth 2:18 to chapter 4, verse 10. What was the Levirate marriage that Naomi hoped to arrange for Ruth and Boaz? Naomi wanted to help her faithful daughter-in-law secure a husband and family. To do this, Naomi considered the Levirate marriage, a practice that had prevailed for many years in Israel. See reading 2022 for an explanation of this custom. Deuteronomy 25, 5-10 is the scriptural reference for the Levirate marriage obligation in Israelite families. The word here rendered redeemer, we translate literally from Hebrew goel, and this is its proper translation. It is rendered merely kinsman in the King James English translation. The function of a goel was to make it possible for a widow who had lost home and property to return to her former status and security, and to have seeds to perpetuate her family. It is easy to see why the later prophets borrowed this word from the social laws of Israel and used it to describe the functions of him who would become the divine Redeemer. Think of what he does to restore us to a proper status with God and to give us future security and eternal seed. Back to the scriptures. And all the people that were in the gate and the elders said, We are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is come into thine house like Rachel and like Leah, which two did build the house of Israel, and do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem. And let thy house be like the house of Pharez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord give thee of this young woman. Old Testament Student Manual, Ruth 4:7-12. How was a public agreement made legally binding? The public life of an Israelite village was concentrated at its main gate. It was here that matters of law were brought for adjudication before the elders of the community. They also were the official witnesses for transactions such as the one in which Boaz agreed to marry Ruth if her kinsman would give up all rights to her dead husband's property. The man renouncing property rights removed a sandal and presented it to the new property holder, a gesture that everyone understood and considered binding if witnessed by the elders. Back to the scriptures. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went in unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the woman said unto Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age. For thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. And Naomi took the child, and laid it in her bosom, and became nurse unto it. And the women her neighbors gave it a name, saying, There is a son born to Naomi. And they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Pharez. Pharez begat Hezron, and Hezron begat Ram, and Ram begat Amminadab, and Amminadab begat Nahshon, and Nahshon begat Salmon, and Salmon begat Boaz, and Boaz begat Obed, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David. Come Follow Me Manual. Christ can turn tragedy into triumph. When Ruth's husband died, the tragedy had consequences for her that were even more severe than a widow today might face. In Israelite culture at that time, a woman without a husband or sons had no right to property and practically no way to earn a living. As you read Ruth's story, notice how the Lord turned tragedy into great blessings. What do you notice about Ruth that might have helped her? What was Boaz's role in redeeming Ruth from her desperate situation? What Christ-like characteristics do you see in both Ruth and Boaz? Old Testament Student Manual, Points to Ponder. The book of Ruth contains one of the most beautiful stories ever written. Despite being set in a day when political chaos and moral degeneracy existed in parts of the land, this story contains not a single demeaning feature and is uplifting and heartwarming. The following are examples of quiet devotion and obedience from this story. Ruth's marriage to Mahlon led to her conversion from the Moabite to the Israelite way of life. Ruth's choice to remain with her widowed mother-in-law, Naomi, is an example of selfless concern for others. The acts of kindness exhibited by Ruth and Boaz had a positive effect on those around them. Ruth's virtue and integrity impressed the noble Boaz, and he was honorable in his relation to her, showing willingness to assume family responsibility. The union of Boaz and Ruth produced a royal posterity from whom came King David and eventually Jesus Christ. President John Taylor used the example of Ruth to describe modern saints who were also willing to give up homes and kinship to be where their God wanted them to be. Thanks be to the God of Israel, who has counted us worthy to receive the principles of truth. These were the feelings you had and enjoyed in your far distant homes. And your obedience to those principles tore you from your homes, firesides, and associations and brought you here. For you felt like one of old when she said, "Whither thou goest, I will go. Thy God shall be my God. Thy people shall be my people. And where thou diest, there will I be buried." And you have gathered to Zion, that you might be taught and instructed in the laws of life, and listen to the words which emanate from God. Become one people and one nation, partake of one spirit, and prepare yourselves, your progenitors and posterity, for an everlasting inheritance in the celestial kingdom of God. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. The truth of this declaration is evident in the contrasting stories of Samson and Ruth. The prophets have always been anxious that the saints find that peace which comes from living a Christ-like life. President Spencer W. Kimball gave us this challenge. Would a frequent house cleaning be in order for all of us? I may not be able to eliminate pornographic trash, but my family and I need not buy or view it. I may not be able to close disreputable businesses, but I can stay away from areas of questioned honor and ill repute. I may not be able to greatly reduce the divorces of the land or save all broken homes and frustrated children, but I can keep my own home a congenital one, my marriage happy, my home a heaven, and my children well adjusted. I may not be able to stop the growing claims to freedom from laws based on morals, or change all opinions regarding looseness in sex and growing perversions, but I can guarantee devotion to all high ideals and standards in my own home, and can work toward giving my own family a happy, interdependent spiritual life. I may not be able to stop all graft and dishonesty in high places, but I myself can be honest and upright, full of integrity and true honor, and my family will be trained likewise. I may not be able to ensure family prayers, home evening, meeting attendance, and spiritual, well-integrated lives in all my neighbors, but I can be certain that my children will be happy at home. They will grow strong and tall and realize their freedom is found at home, in their faith, in clean living, and in opportunity to serve. As Christ said, "And the truth shall make you free." No virtues in the perfection we strive for are more important than integrity and honesty. Let us be complete, unbroken, pure, and sincere, to develop in ourselves that quality of soul we prize so highly in others. 1 Samuel 1-15. The prophet Samuel and Saul, king of Israel. Introduction. Hushed was the evening hymn, the temple courts were dark. The lamp was burning dim before the sacred ark, when suddenly a voice divine rang through the silence of the shrine. The old man, meek and mild, the priest of Israel, slept. His watch the temple child, the little Levite, kept. And what from Eli's sense was sealed, the Lord to Hannah's son revealed. O give me Samuel's ear, the open ear, O Lord, alive and quick to hear each whisper of thy word, like him to answer at thy call, and to obey thee first of all. O give me Samuel's heart, a lowly heart that waits, where in thy house thou art, or watches at thy gates, by day and night a heart that still moves at the breathing of thy will. O give me Samuel's mind, a sweet, unmurmuring faith, obedient and resigned to thee in life and death, that I may read like childlike eyes truths that are hidden from the wise. There is a challenge for Saul of old and for us today. The contrast between Samuel and Saul is a major focus of this section of the Old Testament. What seems to be the chief difference between Samuel the prophet and Saul the king? To the scriptures. 1 Samuel chapter 1. Hannah prays for a son and vows to give him to the Lord. Eli the priest blesses her. Samuel is born. Hannah loans him to the Lord. Now there was a certain man of Rathbathim Zophim of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraite. and he had 2 wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peniah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. And this man went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. And when the time was that Elkanah offered, he gave to Peninnah his wife, and to all her sons and her daughters portions. But unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord had shut up her womb. Old Testament Student Manual, 1 Samuel 1, 4-5. What are the portions that Elkanah gave his wives and children? When Elkanah took his wives and their families to Shiloh, where the tabernacle had been located after the tribes conquered Canaan, to offer sacrifices, a peace offering was made. After the fat, kidneys, and other parts were burned, the priest customarily received the breast and right shoulder. The rest of the sacrificial animal was given back to the offerer to be eaten in a special feast. From his part, Elkanah gave portions of the meat to his family. Hannah received either more than the others or else a more choice portion because of Elkanah's love for her. Back to the scriptures. And her adversary also provoked her sore to make her fret because the Lord had shut up her womb. And as he did so year by year, she went up to the house of the Lord, so she provoked her, therefore she wept and did not eat. Old Testament Student Manual, 1 Samuel 1, 6-7. Who was Hannah's adversary, and why was Hannah provoked by her? Peninnah, the other wife, was constantly striving to irritate and vex her, to make her fret, to make her discontented with her lot, because the Lord had denied her children. As the whole family went up to Shiloh to the annual festivals, Peninnah had both sons and daughters to accompany her, but Hannah had none. And Peninnah took this opportunity particularly to twit Hannah with her barrenness by making an ostentatious exhibition of her children. She was greatly distressed because it was a great reproach to a woman among the Jews to be barren, because, say some, everyone hoped that the Messiah should spring from her line. Back to the scriptures. Then said Elkanah her husband to her, Hannah, why weepest thou? And why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? Am not I better to thee than 10 sons? So Hannah rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh, and after they had drunk. Now Eli the priest sat upon a seat by a post of the temple of the Lord. Old Testament Student Manual, 1 Samuel 1:9. What is the significance of Eli sitting upon a seat by a post of the temple? In the ancient Middle East, it was customary for certain officials to place a stool or seat in the courtyard or near the gate of the city where they could sit in judgment, hearing cases or complaints. These seats usually had no backs and were placed near a wall or post to provide a backrest. This circumstance would explain why Eli was sitting near a post. It was probably on such a backless seat that Eli was sitting when he heard the news of the death of his sons and fell over backwards, killing himself. Back to the scriptures. And she was in bitterness of soul, and prayed unto the Lord, and wept sore. And she vowed a vow, and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but wilt give unto thine handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. Old Testament Student Manual, 1 Samuel 1:11. Hannah's covenant with the Lord that, if she were given a child, no razor would come upon his head, seems to be a promise to raise Samuel as a Nazarite, one under a special vow to God never to cut his hair. In Samuel is a great contrast to Samson, the former keeping his Nazarite vows throughout life, becoming a powerful man of God, and the latter violating all his vows, becoming a wretched example of failure to serve God. Back to the scriptures. And it came to pass, as she continued praying before the Lord, that Eli marked her mouth. Now Hannah she spake in her heart. Only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she had been drunken. And Eli said unto her, How long wilt thou be drunken? Put away thy wine from thee. And Hannah answered and said, No, my lord, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Count not thine handmaid for daughter of Belial, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief have I spoken hitherto. Old Testament Student Manual, 1 Samuel 1:16. When Hannah protested to Eli that she was not a daughter of Belial, she meant a worthless or profane person. Belial means worthless, someone of evil affiliation. It is capitalized by the English translators as if it were a title for Satan, and is sometimes so used in later books of the Old Testament. Back to the scriptures. Then Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. And she said, Let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. And they rose up in the morning early and worshipped before the Lord, and returned, and came to their house to Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. Wherefore it came to pass, when the time was come about after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked him of the Lord. Old Testament Student Manual, 1 Samuel 1:20. The name Samuel means in Hebrew, heard of God. The name was meant to serve as a lifelong reminder to both Hannah and Samuel of the special circumstances and commitments attendant on his birth. Back to the scriptures. And the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer unto the Lord the yearly sacrifice and his vow. But Hannah went not up, for she said unto her husband, I will not go up until the child be weaned, and then I will bring him, that he may appear before the Lord, and there abide forever. And Elkanah her husband said unto her, Do what seemeth thee good. Tarry until thou hast weaned him. Only the Lord establish his word. So the woman abode, and gave her son suck until she weaned him. And when she had weaned him, she took him up with her, with 3 bullocks, and 1 ephah of flour, a bottle of wine, and brought him unto the house of the Lord in Shiloh, and the child was young. And they slew a bullock, and brought the child to Eli. And she said, O my Lord, as thou soul liveth, my Lord, I am the woman that stood by thee here, praying unto the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition which I asked of him. Therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord. And he worshipped the Lord there. Old Testament Student Manual, 1 Samuel 1:20-28. Samuel is presented at the tabernacle. Weaning took place very late among the Israelites. According to 2 Maccabees 7:27, the Hebrew mothers were in the habit of suckling their children for 3 years. When the weaning had taken place, Hannah would bring her son up to the sanctuary to appear before the face of the Lord and remain there forever, i.e., his whole life long. The Levites generally were only required to perform service at the sanctuary from their 25th to their 50th year. But Samuel was to be presented to the Lord immediately after his weaning had taken place, and to remain at the sanctuary forever, i.e., to belong entirely to the Lord. To this end he was to receive his training at the sanctuary, that at the very earliest waking up of his spiritual susceptibilities, he might receive the impressions of the sacred presence of God. Come Follow Me Manual, Ruth, and 1 Samuel 1. I can trust that God will guide and help me regardless of my situation. Can you see yourself in the stories of Ruth, Naomi, and Hannah? Perhaps you have suffered a great loss, as Ruth and Naomi did. Or perhaps, like Hannah, you long for blessings you have not yet received. Ponder what messages you can learn from the examples of these faithful women. How did Ruth and Hannah show faith in God? What blessings did they receive? How can you follow their examples? Consider how you have come to trust the Lord, even when life feels difficult. See also Reina Alberto, through cloud and sunshine, Lord, abide with me, in the November 2019 Ensign or Liahona. Back to the scriptures. 1 Samuel chapter 2. Hannah sings praises to the Lord. Samuel ministers before the Lord. Eli blesses Elkanah and Hannah, and they have sons and daughters. The sons of Eli reject the Lord and live in wickedness. The Lord rejects the house of Eli. And Hannah prayed and said, My heart rejoiceth in the Lord, mine horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth is enlarged over mine enemies, because I rejoice in thy salvation. There is none holy as the Lord, for there is none beside thee, neither is there any rock like our God. Talk no more so exceeding profound, let not arrogancy come out of your mouth, for the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty men are broken, and they that stumbled are girded with strength. They that were full have hired out themselves for bread, and they that were hungry ceased, so that the barren hath borne 7, and she that hath many children is waxed feeble. The Lord killeth and maketh alive, he bringeth down to the grave and bringeth up. The Lord maketh poor and maketh rich, he bringeth low and lifteth up. He raiseth up the poor out of the dust, and lifteth up the beggar from the dunghill, to set them among princes, and to make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he hath set the world upon them. Old Testament Student Manual 1 Samuel 2:8. The people of Hannah's day did not think the world was flat and sitting on pillars, as some suppose. That superstition was the invention of the Middle Ages. Hannah was using poetic language to show the power of Jehovah. Back to the scriptures. He will keep the feet of the saints, and the wicked shall be silent in darkness. For by strength shall no man prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Out of heaven shall he thunder upon them. The Lord shall judge the ends of the earth, and he shall give strength unto his king, and exalt the horn of his anointed. Come follow me, Manual. 1 Samuel 2, 1-10. My heart can rejoice in the Lord. After Hannah took young Samuel to the temple, she spoke beautiful words of praise to the Lord, recorded in 1 Samuel 2, 1-10. These words are even more moving when you consider that a short time earlier she was in bitterness of soul and wept sore. As you study these verses, what messages do you find that increase your feelings of praise and gratitude to the Lord? Perhaps Hannah's song will inspire you to find a creative way to express your gratitude to the Lord. A song, a painting, an act of service, or anything that communicates your feelings toward him. Of course, not all fervent prayers are answered the way that Hannah's was. What do you find in President Dieter F. Uchtdorf's message, Grateful in Any Circumstances, that can help you when your prayers aren't answered in the way you hope? Back to the scriptures. And Elkanah went to Ramah his house, and the child did minister unto the Lord before Eli the priest. Old Testament Student Manual, 1 Samuel 2, 1-11. Hannah's prayer shows her to have been a woman with great faith and love for God. The horn symbolized power and strength. God had given her the power to bear a child. The rock was a representation of protection. Jesus Christ is the rock or stone of Israel, the protector from evil. In 1 Samuel 2:10, both allusions are combined into one. The Messiah is the anointed one who will break all adversaries of the Lord in pieces. The Greek word for Messiah, Christos, also means the anointed one. He was, Hannah said, who would be given strength in that his horn or power would be exalted before men. This passage is a choice Old Testament reference to the future Messiah and shows that Hannah was blessed with the gift of prophecy. Back to the scriptures. Now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord. And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant came while the flesh was in seething with a flesh hook of 3 teeth in his hand, and he struck it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot. All that the flesh hook brought up to the priest, uh, uh, all that the flesh hook brought up, the priest took for himself. So they did in Shiloh until all the Israelites that came thither. Also, before they burnt the fat, the priest's servant came and said to the man that sacrificed, "Give flesh to roast for the priest, for he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw." And if any man said unto him, "Let them not fail to burn the fat presently, and then take as much as thy soul desireth," then he would answer him, "Nay, but thou shalt give it to me now, and if not, I will take it by force." Wherefore the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for men abhorred the offering of the Lord. But Samuel ministered before the Lord, being a child, girded with a linen ephod. Moreover, his mother made him a little coat, and brought it to him from year to year, when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. And Eli blessed Elkanah and his wife, and said, "The Lord give thee seed of this woman for the loan which is lent to the Lord." And they went unto their own home. And the Lord visited Hannah, so that she conceived and bare 3 sons and 2 daughters. And the child Samuel grew before the Lord. Now Eli was very old, and heard all that his sons did unto Israel, and how they lay with the women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he said unto them, "Why do ye such things? For I hear of your evil dealings by all this people." "Nay, my sons, for it is no good report that I hear. Ye make the Lord's people to transgress. If one man sin against another, the judge shall judge him. But if a man sin against the Lord, who shall entreat for him?" Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto the voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them. And the child Samuel grew on, and was in favor both with the Lord and also with men. And there came a man of God unto Eli, and said unto him, "Thus saith the Lord, Did I plainly appear unto the house of thy father, when they were in Egypt in Pharaoh's house? And did I choose him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to offer upon mine altar, to burn incense, to wear an ephod before me? And did I give unto the house of thy father all the offerings made by fire of the children of Israel? Wherefore kick ye at my sacrifice and at mine offering, which I have commanded in my habitation, and honorest thy sons above me, to make yourselves fat with the chiefest of all the offerings of Israel my people. Wherefore the Lord God of Israel saith, I said indeed that thy house and the house of thy father should walk before me forever. But now the Lord saith, Be it far from me, for them that honor me I will honor, and they that despise me shall be lightly esteemed. Behold, the day is come that I will cut off thine arm and the arm of thy father's house, that there shall not be an old man in thine house. And thou shalt see an enemy in my habitation, in all the wealth which God shall give Israel. And there shall not be an old man in thine house forever. And the man of thine whom I shall not cut off from mine altar shall be to consume thine eyes, and to grieve thine heart, and all the increase of thine house shall die in the flower of their age. And this shall be a sign unto thee, that shall come upon thy 2 sons, on Hophni and Phinehas. In one day they shall die, both of them, and I will raise me up a faithful priest, that shall do according to that which is in mine heart and in my mind. And I will build him a sure house, and he shall walk before mine anointed forever. And it shall come to pass that every one that is left in thine house shall come and crouch to him for a piece of silver and a morsel of bread, and shall say, Put me, I pray thee, into one of the priest's offices, that I may eat a piece of bread. Old Testament Student Manual, 1 Samuel 2:13-36. If the priests were entitled to a portion of certain sacrifices, why were the sons of Eli punished? Of these offerings, the portion which legally fell to the priest as his share was the heave leg and the wave breast, and this he was to receive after the fat portions of the sacrifice had been burned upon the altar. To take the flesh of the sacrificial animal and roast it before this offering had been made was a crime which was equivalent to a robbery of God. Moreover, the priest could not claim any of the flesh which the offerer of the sacrifice boiled for the sacrificial meal, after burning the fat portions upon the altar and giving up the portions which belonged to them, to say nothing of their taking it forcibly out of the pots while it was being boiled. Such conduct as this on the part of the young men, the priest's servants, was a great sin in the sight of the Lord, as they thereby brought the sacrifice of the Lord into contempt. The poor example of the priest caused others in Israel to abhor the offering of the Lord. But these actions were not all, for the sons of Eli seduced women and engaged in adulterous acts at the very door of the tabernacle, evidently by misusing their office of priests to entice the women. Under the law of Moses, willful disobedience to parents were punishable by death, and the parents were obliged to see that the punishment was carried out. Hophni and Phinehas compounded their already serious sins by disobeying their father, and Eli failed in his parental responsibility as well as in his office as the presiding priest. Although he had rebuked his sons, he took no action to see that the abomination in his family and at the tabernacle was corrected. Therefore, a man of God, some unnamed prophet, came to Eli and pronounced the Lord's curse upon Eli's house, because thou honorest thy sons above me. That is, Eli's relationship with his sons was of more value to him than his relationship with God. Back to the scriptures. 1 Samuel chapter 3. The Lord calls Samuel. The house of Eli will not be purged by sacrifices and offerings. Samuel is recognized as a prophet by all Israel. The Lord appears to him. And the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli, and the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. Old Testament Student Manual, 1 Samuel 3:1. The word of the Lord was precious in those days. The word precious as used here means scarce. The word of God was seldom heard in all the land. Elder Harold B. Lee explained why as follows. The story commences with a significant statement. And the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli, and the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. That means that there was no prophet upon the earth through whom the Lord could reveal his will, either by personal experience or by revelation. And it came to pass that Eli was laid down in his place, and his eyes were dim. And Samuel the boy also lay down to sleep. And you remember, through that night there came a call, Samuel. And thinking that Eli had called him, he went to Eli's room to be told that Eli had not called him. And he lay down the second time again to be called, and yet the third time. And by this time Eli, sensing the fact that he was being spoken to by an unseen speaker, said, The next time that you hear, then you shall answer, Here I am, Lord, speak to me. And so the next time when the call came, Samuel answered as he had been directed. Now it says Samuel, up to this time, did not yet know the Lord, neither was the word of the Lord revealed to him. And after he had recognized the Lord, and said, Thy servant heareth, then he was told that the Lord was to proceed to do a thing in Israel, at which both the ears of everyone that heareth it shall tingle. And then he explained the reason why Eli could not receive further messages from the Lord. His sons make themselves vile, and he restrained them not. Or in other words, he allowed his sons to curse God, and therefore were leading the people of Israel astray. Back to the scriptures. And it came to pass at that time when Eli was laid down in his place, and his eyes began to wax dim, that he could not see. And ere the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep. That the Lord called Samuel, and he answered, Here am I. And he ran unto Eli and said, Here am I, for thou callest me. And he said, I called not, lie down again. And he went and lay down. And the Lord called yet again, Samuel. And Samuel arose and went to Eli, and said, Here am I, for thou didst call me. And he answered, I called not, my son, lie down again. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto him. And the Lord called Samuel again the third time, and he arose and went to Eli and said, Here am I, for thou didst call me. And Eli perceived that the Lord had called the child. Therefore Eli said unto Samuel, Go lie down, and it shall be, if he call thee, that thou shalt say, Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. And the Lord came and stood, and called as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel answered, Speak, for thy servant heareth. And the Lord said to Samuel, Behold, I will do a thing in Israel, at which both the ears of every one that heareth it shall tingle. In that day I will perform against Eli all things which I have spoken concerning his house. When I begin, I will also make an end. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knoweth, because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. And therefore I have sworn unto the house of Eli, that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be purged with sacrifice or offering forever. And Samuel lay until the morning, and opened the doors of the house of the Lord. And Samuel feared to show Eli the vision. Then Eli called Samuel and said, Samuel, my son. And he answered, Here am I. And he said, What is the thing that the Lord hath said unto thee? I pray thee, hide it not from me. God do so to thee, and more also, if thou hide anything from me of all the things that he said unto thee. And Samuel told him every whit, and hid nothing from him. And he said, It is the Lord, let him do what seemeth him good. And Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and did let none of his words fall to the ground. Old Testament Student Manual, 1 Samuel 3:19. The Lord honored Samuel as he honors all his apostles. You need have no fear that when one of the apostles of the Lord Jesus Christ delivers a prophecy in the name of Jesus Christ, because he is inspired to do that it will fall by the wayside. I know of more than one prophecy which, looking at it naturally, seemed as though it would fall to the ground as year after year passed. But lo and behold, in the providences of the Lord, that prophecy was fulfilled. Back to the scriptures. And all Israel from Dan even to Beersheba knew that Samuel was established to be a prophet of the Lord. And the Lord appeared again in Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of the Lord. Come follow me, Manual. 1 Samuel 3. I can hear and obey the voice of the Lord. Like all of us, Samuel had to learn how to recognize the voice of the Lord. As you study 1 Samuel 3, what do you learn from this young boy about hearing and obeying the Lord's voice? What experiences have you had with hearing his voice? What opportunities do you have, like Eli, to help others recognize when the Lord is speaking to them? See also John 14:14-21, and David P. Homer's Hearing His Voice in the May 2019 Ensign or Liahona. Ideas for Family Scripture Study and Home Evening. Ruth 1:16-18, Ruth 2:5-8, 11-12. Your family could look for examples of kindness and loyalty in these verses. How do we show kindness to our family and others, and loyalty to Jesus Christ? The chapter, Ruth and Naomi, in the Old Testament stories, could help your family learn from Ruth's example. 1 Samuel 1:15. Maybe you could pour something out of a container to help family members visualize what Hannah meant when she said, I have poured out my soul before the Lord. Why is this a good way to describe what our prayers should be like? How can we improve our personal and family prayers? 1 Samuel 2:1-10. Hannah's poem of praise to the Lord may lead you to think of songs that you might use to praise the Lord. You could sing some together. Your family members might also think of other ways to express their feelings for Jesus Christ. For example, they could draw pictures that show why they love the Savior. 1 Samuel 3:1-11. It might be fun to act out the story of the Lord calling to Samuel, or your family can watch the video Samuel and Eli on the churchofjesuschrist.org website. Family members could talk about times when they have felt the Lord speaking to them and how they acted on his words. For more ideas for teaching children, see this week's outline and Come Follow Me for primary. Suggested song, There is Sunshine in My Soul Today.